All right, hi guys. My name's Chris Garnikowski. I'm going to be talking about gambling actually today. So more than 2 centuries ago, the Puritans of Massachusetts were the first entity in America to impose a law against gambling. And in the more than 200 years since then, the policies, legally speaking, have gone back and forth quite frequently. I'm going to go ahead and argue to you guys today that gambling, the legalization of gambling, provides a net benefit to society. And to prove that point, I have three main reasons here. One, that the legalization of gambling provides an economic benefit to communities. 2, that the legalization of gambling provides measurable social benefits. And 3, that the social costs of gambling can be effectively mitigated. And before we go any further, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a bit of a definition of gambling here. A lot of these things are familiar, but we may not think of them as gambling. This could include commercial and Indian casinos. It could include state lotteries, sports betting, and internet gaming. So the first point, that legalization of gambling provides an economic benefit to communities. An excellent example of this is in Indian reservations that have been given the legal right to operate a casino. One study found that there was a 12% increase in tribal employment and a 14% reduction in the population that was working poor, which is pretty excellent. Another economic benefit is that casinos can cause an increase in property values. Another study that was conducted nationwide found that counties that housed a casino had a $6,000 higher median assessment value. So another key point here is that the legalization of gambling provides measurable social benefits. As many of you may know, lottery sales in many states are earmarked for education, and in the states in which they're not earmarked for education, many are earmarked for parks and recreation, tax relief, for other services. And if you're anything like me, you may be a little bit wary that that money actually makes it into education. One study found that, and this was controlling for other economic variables, one study found that $1 of lottery revenue earmarked for education resulted in 60 to 80 cents that actually increased in school spending. And even in states where lottery revenues were earmarked for general funds, 40 to 50 cents increased school spending was noticed in those states. Another social benefit that gambling can provide, legalized gambling, is funding to charities. So just as an example, a 1996 study found that charitable gambling in Connecticut provided $18 million net to charities. And that, mind you, is just 1 year in one state. That same study actually also found that there's little evidence of regressivity in casino expenditures. And to give you guys a little bit of an idea what I'm talking about, something is regressive if you find that lower income groups spend a higher proportion of their income on it. Lottery tickets, for example, actually are regressive, but that's actually not helpful here. the social costs of increased availability of gambling can be mitigated. I think we can all sort of, we all might see that one of the main issues with gambling is that some people have a serious trouble controlling gambling, and a detailed Australian study of the effectiveness of several problem gambling treatment methods found, quote, a robust post-treatment drop in gambling behaviors across all treatment groups. In other words, there is a social cost. It can be mitigated with proper implementation of a legalized gambling policy. 18 of the 23 states which allows casino gambling provide services for problem gamblers. And according to that same study, some states, such as Maryland, have programs that are known as voluntary banishment programs, where if a gambler chooses to be barred essentially from casinos, casinos are required to honor that. And statewide, for example, in Maryland, if you're on that list, casino will arrested for trespassing if you show up. So anyway, in conclusion, the legalization of gambling will provide a net benefit to society, both economically and socially, and any social cost can be mitigated through effective policy measures.
All right, well, the structural stuff is all very solid. There's an internal organization. It's all signposted clearly. There was a good preview at the beginning. The proposition's clearly identified, so you're in good shape there. I'm not exactly sure that there's a huge amount of controversy that gambling has had some benefits. It's the net benefit that you need to be talking about a little bit, and the negative consequences probably could be measured given that we have, you mentioned a number of states have legalized gambling for a variety of purposes, and there's not any discussion of what the consequences were there except for the Indian casinos where there was an increase in employment and a slight decrease in being working poor. And then you also have the economic benefit about places where casinos are located having increased property values. The causality on that one I think is a little bit thin, but it's worth making the argument at least. On the social benefits, you're primarily talking about where we get the money. We don't have any total on how much money is raised either through lotteries or through taxing on gambling resources. So it's a little hard to measure this. And since you're arguing an on-balance kind of benefit that's occurring here, I think we need to have something that's a little bit more substantive. The statistic that you have about how much it returns for the lottos, to the schools, that we get 60 to 80 cents on the dollar that gets spent, and even in places where it's not designated that has a benefit to schools, that's great. In California, for instance, what would that represent as part of the whole state budget on education? The lottery monies, how much do they account for? That shouldn't be hard to figure out, and then you could easily give us some on-balance argument there that deals with that. The mitigation argument, by the way, the mitigation argument you present, you kind of shoot yourself in the foot by talking about regressive taxes. I think that'll probably be an issue that comes up from the respondent on that particular point. Your answer to the problem, it seems to be that the only real problem that gambling presents is perhaps addictive behavior, where people have problems with controlling their gambling, and that states have controls on those sorts of things. They have programs that are available, and when people take advantage of those programs, they are pretty effective. What you don't have is any information about how many people actually take advantage of those programs that need that kind of assistance. Somebody who's motivated to do it, probably it's going to work a little bit better for it. But what about all the people who aren't motivated and perhaps still have some of those negative consequences? There's not any discussion of that. It's a little bit thin on that particular point. I thought you did a pretty good job presenting the argument, but I think, like I said, I think you need a little bit more proof here and there. And there were several places where there's not really a source citation for the information. For example, the statistic on the lottery money, it gets cited as one study. And, that makes it awfully hard to research one study. I'm not sure that I give credence to the one study group. All right, thank you.